it's a real honour to be here. And as you'll see as we go through some of this, we actually do a huge amount of what we're going to talk about today here in Newcastle. So you'll see more. So I believe Herb did set a challenge yesterday of, honestly, he can make tax interesting. So you can tell me at the end and we'll give it a try. So I'll start by just what is HMRC and probably put a slightly different perspective on it than perhaps you walked in thinking this morning. I try and position it because as Herb says, I'm pretty new. This is month 8 or 9. It's quite a big organisation. We do a small turnover of just about £500 billion a year. We have a nice growth trajectory. It's not enormous, but most companies would be quite happy. We have a lot of customers. Now, I would say they're not all volunteers, okay? But it's a lot of customers. We committed, or our friends in Parliament helped us commit to, some very ambitious savings targets called austerity. You need us to achieve this. And that's enormous on the top of 20% that we've already taken out. So we have some really big challenges of how we take out cost and become more efficient. And then we have this thing called the tax gap. Now, 35 billion is a big number. That is the tax we estimate that we could collect if we could find it, or if people told us about it. It actually, whilst it sounds a big number, it's 7%. We're one of the best countries in the world in terms of our efficiency of collecting tax. But it gives a great opportunity for investing in different ways of doing things, and we'll talk about big data a bit in a minute, and look at those kind of things. And I guess you look at all that and you go, wow, this is an amazing place to work. And then you think about what we do with the money. So if we didn't bring this in, hospitals wouldn't be there, schools wouldn't open, the most vulnerable in society wouldn't get looked after. So there's actually a really important purpose to what we do, as well as needing to run a very efficient company. We're not entirely digital today. Nobody told me when I arrived that I would have the honour of running what is probably the 3rd largest publishing business in Britain. It's true, it's true. We do an enormous number of letters. We do a huge number of inbound phone calls. And even more scarily, we send an enormous number of bits of paper out. I'm sure you will enjoy receiving what I've now learnt are P2 coding notices. And I'm sure you also enjoy doing self-assessment each year. I have to say, I was in the war room on the 31st of January. We were transacting £1 million a minute of incoming revenue. It was quite exciting. But we shouldn't forget, actually, hey, that was exciting. All right. For me, sorry, that was exciting. I quite liked it. The people enjoyed giving us that money. So, you know, we also actually have quite a big digital heritage. So we do a lot of online transactions already in the consumer space. In the business space, we actually do even more. You probably won't know, but the first ever B2B electronic transactions in Britain in 1971 were HM Customs. So we actually have an amazing heritage of innovation in this area that we kind of lost our way a bit over the last few years, but there's some really good foundations. Now, that doesn't mean it's all simple IT and that there's nothing complex to do underneath it. We run a pretty big IT estate. We look after a lot of records, a lot of very important records. You really wouldn't want us to screw this up. This needs to work every day. You'll see we do at least 70% of all government transactions actually come through HMRC. So we have a pretty big scale. You can have a smile on that of, if we did the ratio in this room of how many have smartphones or Blackberries, laptops to desktops, I think it might be a slightly different ratio. We will be changing that. There will be a lot more laptops and smartphones rolling out across HMRC. But you know, there's an awful lot to build on top of from what we have today. Our ambition, and I think Mike Bracken came last year or the year before and spoke. So hopefully you've got a good sense of the cross-government digital ambition. And I think the work that GDS are doing in this space is just fantastic, the way they're setting the agenda. But we're really picking up on that. And our intent is to create the online tax account for either citizens, consumers, or for businesses and professionals, and make it as easy to work with us as if you were doing your online banking today. And I think that's quite a good analogy to have in your head of what we want to achieve. And for that to work, you know, if you're a citizen on your smartphone and your tablet and your desktop, and the same, but recognising the different user need for if you're a business or a professional trying to do it as well. And through that, complete a completely joined up multi-channel digital experience for anyone coming in to use the platform, to use our services and understand what they've got with us and through us. So that's kind of the background. I thought I'd just pick out a few sections of, you know, how are we trying to get everyone in HMRC to think like a startup, behave like a startup, recognising we do have to bring in 500 billion a year, and we do have quite a bit of legacy that we've got to take on the journey with us. So I picked a few topics, thought you might find them interesting, and we'll see where we go. Hopefully, you can see we have a vision. I think it's quite ambitious. I think it's really good fun. It's incredibly motivating within the teams that are working on it. And as we take the story out more and more to some of the communities that are actually going to use what we produce, they seem to be quite excited by it as well. But a vision is nothing unless you've got people who can actually deliver on that vision. This is a photo of our Long Benton office. I don't know if you know, we've got a huge presence here in Newcastle. Anybody know Long Benton? Right, you've seen all those buildings? It's fantastic, I love it. Not all of it looks like that. Okay, and if you'd had a mental image of what inside a civil service building looked like, it might not have been that. Okay, I get to see it for the first time this afternoon. We've been building this since April, and well, it's up, it's running. It's actually delivered its first digital service. That went live a couple of weeks ago. For those of you who do tax credits, you can now renew, with no change of circumstance, your tax credits online, and it works on your phone, it works on your tablet, it works on your desktop. And this team built it. It's the first thing to come out of our Newcastle centre, and it's just fantastic. We're doing this here, we're doing it in London. For different parts of the technology we're building, we're going to do different parts of the country, because we see a real opportunity to leverage, you know, regional talent hotspots, and the North East is key in that. So, one team, we'll have our own core people within HMRC, and then we'll have an ecosystem of partners around that so that those partners can help us develop things. And I will do a big plug for job adverts at the end because, you know, I'm just shameless on this sort of stuff. We want to get some great talent. Design is also really important. And again, we take a lot from GDS in this particular area, but one of the things we're really starting to focus on now is how do we get full multi-channel design experience? How do we make it make sense to still have some letters? Because we can't, there's a few legislative reasons why we can't get rid of all of them yet. The letter makes sense with what you're reading when you go to the website, with what you're receiving when you've logged in, and actually that journey makes sense. And it makes sense across multiple devices as well. So huge energy and effort going into the design. Part of that setup you just saw, we've got a couple of usability labs in there as well, where we can actually bring people in to actually show them things, get feedback, do all those kind of things. So hopefully, and I will test everyone in this room of, do you understand your P2s? When they arrive, when it says K or whatever code is on yours, do you really know what that means? And how do we make, what exactly? It's very hard. I don't quite understand it yet. So, you know, it's something we've got to really work on because there's some really important stuff in there and we have to make it much more accessible, much easier to use. So this is one. Actually, Herb and I had this discussion, I think, when he came down. We ended up talking architecture. This is really important that we get this right, because you can have the best vision, but if you haven't really thought through how you're going to deliver it, you really don't stand a chance, frankly. So we've split our vision and our architecture vision really into three main parts, and then I'll talk about the red bit that brings it all back together. The first is a truly multi-channel digital tax platform at the top. So this is so that it joins up when you ring us, when you write to us, or when you go online. Now, I would love everybody to want to do everything online, and I would love to make everything available as quickly as I can. We have trained the nation to work in a particular way for the last 40 years, which is you write to us or you ring us up. We've also set some quite amazing SLAs that are going to last well into the digital age. We currently target to respond to 80% of post within 15 days. Now do that on your smartphone. Are you going to wait 15 days for it to come back and say thank you very much? So, you know, we have a huge amount of work to do to actually change the way we think and change all our internal processes so that we can respond in, let me say, 15 seconds. You know, you probably won't wait more than 1.5 seconds. There's an enormous amount of work to do. So, huge amount of work to get a multi-channel digital tax platform in place. In the purple area, we have to get great underlying platforms as well. So, you want to be sure we calculate your tax right. You want to be sure that we keep those records and we keep them very securely and that they're there for many, many years and are safe. So, lots of platform consolidation, and I'll talk about one example in a minute, but making sure we're really solid about how we do benefits payments, about how we do taxes. On the, in the green area is looking at data. So today, within HMRC, we run a very fragmented data structure. About 10 to 12 data warehouses. Some of them have the same information in, and sometimes it matches. We're moving all of our data into a single open source based data repository. That process is now underway. We actually believe that will give us better data security because we'll be able to see it all in one place and put much better controls around it. What it does, though, is it enables us to see better what's going on, which will help with the tax gap, but it will also allow us to be proactive with the way we present data. So for those of you who do PAYE, so self-assessment, when you go to fill the form in, and I know it always works beautifully, it's blank. We don't tell you what you put in last year. We don't tell you the bank interest that we know you've had. We could do loads of things to make it easier for you. And that's what this is about. How do we do that in a way that actually makes it easier for you to complete stuff and easier for you to get it right? Because we actually have a view that most people want to do this right, and if we make it easy, they're more likely to get it right. What it also does, if you actually bring all those things together, it allows us to start doing real-time transaction risking. And again, this is about helping you get it right for the vast majority of people who want to do it right, and for those who don't, and there are some out there, sadly, making sure we can spot when someone's trying to do something fraudulent and then actually close it down in as near real time as possible rather than letting it come through and then catching it later. So bringing all this together becomes really important, and we have to do this to create the customer experience I talked about at the start. Then we have to run it well. And I picked a couple of examples here, mainly because the first one was actually run here up in Newcastle. The system that all of PAYE and National Insurance runs on is actually called MPS. It's been around quite a long time, and it will be around for quite a long time as well. It's actually a pretty decent system. It holds the records of 82 million citizens. Now, you will tell me that's more people than there are alive. Correct. Because for some things, we actually have to keep the records for many years after people die. So this holds, you know, the information about the nation and collects a mere 47% of that UK tax revenue. So it's quite a big platform. We re-platformed it a couple of weeks ago, and nobody even noticed. It was fantastic. We moved it off a lot of old, nasty legacy tin onto a lot of bright, shiny new stuff. That, you know, you can imagine it was a classic case study of loads and loads of racks, very, very few racks, lots less power, lots less carbon, and loads more compute power to be ready for digital. Because the one thing we do know is that when we put this stuff online, everyone will look at it, and they'll keep looking at it. So we have to be ready for much, much more volume. So that was a real success, and the team here up in Newcastle did a really good job on that. The other thing we're looking at, and I guess we all saw the news this morning about eBay, is cybersecurity is a really big thing for us. So making sure we get this right, we look after financial records, we need to make sure that. So we are investing heavily in the cyber and transaction monitoring element of going digital, and are building cyber command centres in a couple of locations in the UK so that we can 24/7 be watching everything that's going on and make sure we try and spot stuff before it gets out of control. So you've got to run it well. The other thing is, this is a journey. So we haven't said this is some pan-galactic project, we're going to design the whole thing, we're going to build the whole thing, then we're going to release it. Actually, what we're doing is taking what most of you I'm sure would do every day, a more agile approach to this. We started with a few small exemplars. We're trialling some at the moment for business that allows them to see all of their taxes in one place, all joined up. We're trialling some around PAYE that allows you to update your company car details. And as I've said earlier, we're doing a really interesting one for tax credit renewals at the moment. That one actually we built in 8 weeks from start to finish. Now, it wasn't, if you've got 2 weeks before you lose your job, we weren't quite that hard on the team. But that was quite a good story. I like that one. But actually, what we said to the team is, look, we're going into the tax credits renewal peak, which happens over the next month or so. What can we do? What can we do to help? How quickly can we do it? And the Newcastle team went, well, we'd like to show what we can do. We'll build this. We're actually talking to them this morning, and they've decided they want to build something else as well now, and they want to try and do it even faster, which is just fantastic. So we're trying that. We're also, as you go in to do your self-assessment this year, we will be asking you if you would like to step away from paper. Asking you to say, would you like to give us your details so that in the future we can start to provide all these updates to you electronically. And we're seeing quite a good uptake of that as we do it. But we've got a hugely ambitious roadmap, and it's all getting quite exciting, and the teams are really starting to grow. So I've got to finish on an advert, and I need your help. So if it appeals to any of you, or people you might know, we're always looking for talent. Now, we're really committed to building a lot of things up here in the Northeast. But over the next year, we're going to need lots of great people. And I suspect you're right. As you came in here this morning, you may not have thought top of my list of places I want to build my digital career is HMRC. Now, I hope you're going to leave here thinking that is the place to be. Forget Google, forget Amazon. You've got to go to HMRC. And if you feel like that, brilliant. That's my email address. We recruit in waves. So there'll be phasing to the process. It's not an entirely standard process, but I'd love to know and send people our way, and we will get in touch with them over the next year and try and get them involved. And that's our story. Thank you very much.